I'm Indy Nidell,
And I'm Spartacus Olson.
and this is a World War II in real time, time goes fundraising week live stream extravaganza. Yeah.
That's right. About a week ago, we released a video where Indy explained a lot about what we do and gave you some transparency into how the financials work behind our channel. And you guys, you were fantastic. You gave us the absolute most amazing reception that you can imagine. We've reached today. The fundraising campaign really goes on until tomorrow, but to this date, we have reached 81% of the goal to increase our fundraising by $15,000 a month. And
that means that I could buy a new car pet for the office.
Yes.
There. Come on,
No, the reason why we're doing this is because, as you guys know, we're gearing towards releasing our D-Day special, 24 hours on the 6th of June this year. Indy and I will be going to the mountains not the coming week, but the week after that, for our second session of writing, and we are in the middle of production of it. And on top of it, this is, as you saw in the video, a huge, big project, and we wanted to give you the chance to ask us anything you want about that today and here.
About the project, or about the stuff in the video, all the behind the scenes stuff, my hopes, my dreams, my desires. Just ask Sparty about life, the universe, and everything. Yes, there's going to be a lot of Douglas Adams references today. Sparty and I said that to each other just before this started. Said we're going to do a lot of Hitchhiker's Guide references. I should have had a towel with me, damn it.
Okay. Oh, you should have. But I mean, the most important thing is that is actually one of the key tenets of our whole team. Don't panic.
Yes, don't panic is very, very important. So I heard that knocking noise coming from somebody else's computer. That's not mine.
That was mine, because I forgot to close that or have that window open.
Wait, we see. What do you plan to do after reaching the fundraising goal? Finish the D-Day project. We do about an hour of content a week on World War II. And that's, roughly 52 hours a year, give or take. The D-Day project is 24 hours. That's adding 6 months that's adding a whole half year on top of our regular work. So we plan on paying the editors and paying for the source material that we use, paying whoever's doing extra research and stuff for us. We'll finish writing half of it by the end of February. And that part will be filmed, and then we'll finish the rest of the writing in March. While things are already being edited, some of the specials and stuff, they're being pre-edited, and some of the live footage that we shot last September when we were in Normandy with Paul Woodedge. Because that's already being getting in shape. So it's a rolling thing. And beyond that, after D-Day, assuming that people's monthly support continues to be people's monthly support, we weren't able to go on the road at all during COVID. We wanted to follow the first 30 days of Barbarossa, like Sparty and I, going 10 kilometers a day or whatever the advanced Army Group Center advanced. We'd love to be able to go on some of the actual locations, which is like I did with the Great War. I mean, we went all kinds of places with the Great War. The African front is closed, but there's new fronts. I mean, this spring, Burma really heats up, and something that people never, ever think about when they think about World War II, the invasion of India happens this spring. I'm not going to do any spoilers about what's going on after D-Day is over, but we definitely want to be able to go on the road again, and that this will pay for that. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's also really important to understand, once D-Day is over in the war, and also that means for us, the pace of things picks up a lot, and there are a lot of other things. I mean, we've had this question many times, why are you only doing D-Day? But there are other events, I don't want to spoil either, but I am going to say one of them. Operation Bagration starts and goes off, and then just one thing rolls into the other. The last year of the war is really, really intense, and in order to do that, the justice that it needs, we need to not just maintain our regular episodes, but we are going to need to do a lot of specials. We want to go on location. So the increased fundraising that we've done now is really what brings us through the next year. And that's why we need to maintain that. We need to make sure that we keep this up in order to be able to do it that way. And then of course, when the war,
Sparty, or I have an or we have the increased fundraising and we close the channel down on June 5th. That would be the greatest practical joke in the history of YouTube, right? We just close it down on June 5th. No more videos. That's the end of the series.
Okay, that's not what we're going to do. But what I think is also important to know is that we're not just going, like, we're not running full steam ahead until September 2024, and then we're going to fall off a cliff and we're going to disappear out of view. No, we really want to establish this as a continuous effort to bring history alive and to bring the world more knowledge about our past in order to build a better future. So Indy is already working on, not actually working on the writing, but he's working on developing new projects. I'm working on developing new projects. Astrid is working on developing new projects. And that is also why the fundraising is important, because if we don't have the liquidity we need in order to maintain our team, that means that we can't really pick up anything new. So this is all what secures us to go forward and continue our mission, which is to bring you the coolest history channel that the world has ever seen.
Now, somebody's asking, will the Korean War be covered week by week after World War II? Many of you know that that's a kind of a pet project idea I have. Yes, it will at some point. We will do that. I don't know if it's the very next thing we'll do, because just like 3 months ago, Sparty and I were snowballing ideas, and we came up literally with the coolest idea for a project for this channel where time goes, even cooler than World War II or the Great War. Trust me, it's a 20th century project. It's got mass appeal because we can't just do, we love doing the smaller documentary series on time ghosts, like the Indonesian War of Independence stuff, but nobody's going to give us a lot of money to do the Indonesian War of Independence week by week for 5 years. This is something that we need something that's got stickiness. Well, the Korean War has stickiness, of course. But yeah, you guys would be really excited when you find out. But as for Korea, I don't think I would be able to do, because I want to write it, of course. I don't think I'd be able to do the Korean War without having done both world wars beforehand, not just so much for the information, but because Korea is going to be harder, because there's a lot of action at the beginning and there's a lot of action later on. There's like a year of real complete stalemate, but I'd still have to cover something and make it interesting week after week. And I think the experience of writing these 2 world wars has prepared me to be able to do that quite well. So I think Korea would still be good and still be interesting, even if there's no actual fighting for like 11.5 months.
So, and tying into that, because we're talking about the future, before I answer that, I can answer a small one. Did you think that you would go to 81% of the fundraising goal when you sent out the video last week? Well, I mean, we have a great faith in our community. You guys out there are fantastic. So we certainly hope that we would reach the goal, but we might not have thought that it was going to go as fast and that the reception was going to be as amazing as it was, but it was, and we're very, very happy for that. And I mean, the fact of the matter is that, as all of you who have seen the video will know, we don't plan with big buffers or anything like that. So this is really money that goes straight into the project that we really need. And Astrid was getting a little bit worried about how we were going to maintain everything, but she is now a lot calmer. You'll see her tomorrow on the screen.
Yeah.
About that. And the second question I wanted to answer was what's the status on the Between Two Wars Zeitgeist and Dictionary? Any other smaller projects you guys are looking to work on this year outside World War II? Yes and no. Yes, we hope that by the time that we're done with D-Day, we will be able to get back to doing some of the smaller projects. But until we
Dictionary, definitely. We'll do those when we can. Those don't take a week or 2 weeks to write. I can usually write a dictionary episode in 7 or 8 hours with research and count.
Absolutely. But I mean, that's why I'm saying yes. But we do have to get through our D-Day writing before Indy or I can start concentrating on anything beyond War Against Humanity and the weekly World War II you might have noticed, some of you, that I've been away for 2 weeks, not 2 weeks consecutively, but 2 episodes of War Against Humanity have been merged together last week or this week because I was sick, and the week before that because Indy and I were away writing D-Day. And in difference to Indy, I don't run on a 4-week production cycle for many reasons that I don't want to go into here. I ended up last year having to do it week by week, and so I'm doing that there right now. But sometime during the spring, Indy and I will be through with the writing and shooting of D-Day, and then we will get back to smaller projects as well. These projects are really, I mean, all of them are things we really, really love to do. And tying into, I'm going to hand that question to Indy now, but the World War does have a couple of moments in it where you just have to put all your focus to it.
Yeah.
Like D-Day is one of them. And the question here was, are there any other events worthy of the same attention as Normandy? I'll answer my part to it, and then I'll hand it to Indy. Every event in World War II is worthy of that kind of attention. That's not why we're doing it. We're not doing D-Day because it's more worthy than any other event in World War II. We're doing it because it's very concentrated, so we can do it in 24 hours, and because we hope that we can break out outside of the normal community or the core community and win some new viewers, because this is a project that addresses an issue or an event that a lot of people know about that aren't maybe the biggest hardcore World War II buffs, but we can win them, and we can, show them all of the other amazing stuff. But my answer remains, all of the events of World War II are worthy of the same attention, and we try to give them that. I think Indy can say a couple of words about that.
The thing about like doing Pearl Harbor or doing D-Day or doing something like this, it has to be something that's not multi-week, like Bagration or I don't know, the Battle of the Bulge or something like that. These are things that take time, so you can't do 6 hours of Pearl Harbor or 24 hours of D-Day, even though D-Day is a bit much more sprawling project. And obviously the operations go on in June, July, August, and September. And those will be covered every week in the regular episodes. This is something we could do as an extra thing. And we have done smaller things. I mean, we did extra stuff at Kursk, and we did extra stuff at Stalingrad and Midway and stuff like that. Which, you maybe get an extra 40 minutes or an extra hour, an hour and a half of content or whatever, or with the Stalingrad map thing, an extra 3 hours total. But no, I don't know if we're going to do something this big after that. I would like to do something big, a large scale thing that's at least a few hours production for VE Day and VJ Day, because I think you need to do wrap ups. And again, since our focus, well, one of our foci, but our focus is separating our D-Day special from other D-Day specials, is the real focus on the embedded journalist and the story getting out and the journalism around the world. And I think we should definitely do something similar when the war in Europe ends and when the war in the Pacific ends, because that's something you don't see. People wrap things up and say, and then they all lived happily ever after, which we did, right? Here we are, right? But that's something I'd like to do, but that's down the line. And that would be 2 kinds of wrap-ups to 2 major parts of this show. We're not certain if or how or when this channel might end, the World War II channel. I mean, even after the regular week-by-week action in the field ends, there's still loads of stuff we haven't covered that we could cover. I mean, we're not going to run out of stuff for another year or so. I want to write and host the project that I haven't told you about, that Sparty and I talking about, and Korea, but it'll continue. But other than after D-Day, the major things like this kind of size, it would really be VJ Day and VE Day for me.
And I mean, all of this, and that's what I think is really important. And again, thank you all for being part of this and taking, making the effort and taking the financial commitment in your hand to enable us to do it. what we do beyond our regular videos really does depend on the fundraising. So keep those funds rolling in, and we can keep those videos rolling out. It's
You're so
really
much better at that than I am. I'm no good at saying that. I'm good at saying so many other things, but not that, you know.
well, I was a salesman in an earlier life, so
In an earlier life, toothbrush salesman, actually.
yes, 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 yes. But
Yep.
only used toothbrush.
You know, Spartacus once sold 43,724 toothbrushes in 85 minutes. He went
Used
to he went to
toothbrushes.
he went to Foxborough Stadium to see the Patriots play, a little local color, right? And just outside the entrance, he had a gigantic vat full of nacho chips, right? And a gigantic vat full of dip. And people would come by and they'd look at, he'd say, hey, take a chip, have some dip, sure. And people would take the chip and they, dip it in the dip, and then they'd eat it. And then they'd spit it out and they'd say, this dip tastes like shit. And he'd say, it is shit. Want to buy a toothbrush? That's
I'd like to throw in a little comment here too, because growing up, my dad was this is Ian, by the way, to everyone listening on the stream, but my dad was a programmer and he had all these different startup projects that he tried doing. And one of them was a subscription toothbrush service. And he wasn't as good as Sparty at selling toothbrushes, but what that did mean was that growing up between the age of like 12 to 15, there was boxes of about 10,000 toothbrushes that had come in from China sitting in the garage. And to this day, we still use those toothbrushes, and they're a household toothbrush. And every Christmas and every birthday, you get a box of like 20 toothbrushes. The business didn't go anywhere, but we've never had to buy a toothbrush since. So
that's great, man. The next time we have a pandemic and there's a toothbrush shortage, I know who to call. All right, we have another question to field. Let's see. Do we ever never forget documenting the ongoing atrocity being committed right now in Ukraine? I don't think we want to cover anything that's, I mean, I can't say no, but I don't want to think we want to cover anything that's less than, say, 30 years old. And even that's really pushing it, to have the historiography really more settled, and to have a lot of the principal players not be around to still spin whatever, so we can actually try to figure out better. I don't know if I'm explaining this well. Try to figure out better how things happened. I mean, we are historians. I can't see covering. I mean, we did the Time Ghost stuff about Ukrainian history, so you could understand the nature of what's going on a little better on the Time Ghost. That's what historians do. But we're not current events or recent events moderators.
I mean, we've sort of answered this question before, and on top of what Indy says, or clarifying even more what Indy says, the kind of research you do for history is very, very different for the kind of research you do for current affairs. That's really where the journalist differs from the historian. We look at things that have been settled, where you can actually say this is fact, and this is known, and this has been established. And it takes time for that to happen. While a journalist will go out and try to uncover sources, and will always be in an area of uncertainty that is even wider than ours. If history is a science or if it's an art is something that, was debated. My opinion is there, but I don't want to get into that. But it's definitely so that we come closer to what is scientifically established fact than any journalist can, simply because of what Indy said. If you look at just a passage of time and things like classification being lifted. We've talked about this many times before as well. When we did the Cuban Missile Crisis, we had access both to the KGB, to the CIA, and to the White House files, which was only very recent when we did that. And these are the sources. And a journalist would, in 1962, would not have had access to those files, and therefore could only speculate.
Or 82. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Carry on.
No, that was it. So I mean, of course, we look at the world and we see historical parallels, and we'd love to talk about those, and we do. That's what Into Context is for. But we should really stick to our wheelhouse, which is history, not journalism.
Yeah. Good point. Will we cover the aftermath of World War II following the surrenders and cover the occupation and rebuilding of Japan? Well, we'll cover it some way, but we haven't really decided. I mean, as far as I know, this war is never going to end. You know, I'm only in February 1944. But let's say that somehow, fortunately, the war ends in 1945, and let's just pick a side. Let's say it ends in the Allies' favor, and there is an occupation of Japan. Well, we'd have to cover the aftermath, obviously, but it wouldn't be in real time, week by week. It would be covered episodic, I think. Pretty certain we'd have to do it like.
I think that's an interesting topic, actually, because if you look at the chronology of events, some people have asked, can you do the Cold War? And I'm like, well, that's not really an event, that's an epoch. And, you know, that just goes on and on and on. The thing about a war, especially a war as intense as the two world wars, is that there is really a big difference between one week and the other week in what's going on inside of the war. And Indy just talked about that earlier here in the stream about Korea, where there's a long stalemate that makes it more difficult. But the world wars are really easy. And everything beyond that, if we're talking about things that stretch over many years, it gets a little trickier how to do it. That doesn't mean that we won't do it. It just means that it's different. And the aftermath of World War II, both in Europe and in Asia, fills that. It fits into that bucket, basically, because suddenly things start happening that kind of have effects like months later, and they're very subtle, and there's no direct action to it and whatnot. So it's easier to cover that topically than it is chronologically.
Yeah. We have another question here. How many people are in the studio during a typical recording session? Between 2 and 4. Sometimes it'll be like just me and Astrid, like my recording sessions, or Sparty could talk about his, or just me and Sparty. I prefer it when they're both there. One of them really doing the camera and the sound, and the other one doing the teleprompter separately. Sometimes we'll have like Marek or somebody there, you know, just dancing. But other than that,
recently we had 14 people in the studio when you recorded.
Never again. God, yeah,
that was really irritating.
It was a professor, and he had his students from a local university came down, and they were nice and they were quiet, and there was no problem with them. I just don't like recording World War II with lots of people in the studio.
It was very crowded. That was the thing. People were sitting on the floor. It was, yeah. Somebody asked here, I thought I loved your tour of the studio. I always thought that you had a multi-camera setup, which, yeah, I mean, that was actually something that we came up very early on in when we started doing the Great War back in 2014. The idea of having a 4K camera and going in instead of not doing it. And the thing about that is that, okay, it saves having a camera, and that's a one-time cost. What it really does for us, and what's really cool about that, is that it saves the host from having to do multiple takes, or saves the crew from having multiple teleprompters on different cameras and making sure what's going on. So it makes it a lot more fluid, which means that, I mean, if you look at a 17, 18-minute episode that Indy or I record, we both record those under half an hour. That's how long it takes. It takes a little longer for those of us, Astrid and Anna, who's not native English speakers, but for us, it takes half an hour and we're done with that show. Of course, that's also because we're well prepared. We've read the text. You
wrote the text.
ourselves. Yeah, that's you know, not always, but you know, often enough. And if we haven't written it, we've gone through it and we've done our little changes to it to make like
for our voice,
the subtle language things that are ours that you don't know if you're not us, right? But so we know that, but I mean, that's really, really important. If we have multiple cameras, we would definitely need an hour for every episode. And that would mean that we could never, ever shoot as much as we do in one session. And that would make it really, really difficult to have a virtual setup the way that we have it now.
It would also impact, of course, the time spent editing the episodes too.
Yes.
You know, Sparty used to produce regular films back in the 90s, and I've done a lot of film and TV stuff throughout my life. I like working with YouTube so much more. Just the immediacy. I'm like, it took 20 minutes to do that episode and it's done. It's done. I don't have to do 5 takes and I don't have to do 23 more takes from this angle. Well, wait a second. What if we do a longer shot? Let's put the camera across the street. We're going to do we'll do 5 takes. Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay, director. No, I never had a problem with that. I think I'd have a problem going back. So,
you know what, Andy, now that you say that, being a little, self-deprecating, I think our live footage when we were in Normandy, for instance, suffers a little bit from that because we're so used to just, throwing up a camera, shooting, moving on, right?
Yeah.
And we should think about that. We might need to take somebody in from the outside to help us get more multi-camera tuned and to do things in a little bit more complicated setups.
Well, we had a few brigadiers from the Time Ghost Army that were there in Normandy and stuff. We can put one of them to work doing that.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
I like putting them to work. They're already brigadiers. They're already like supporting us at our highest level. I'm like, hey, you want to hold the lights? Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Oh, but they were so great. Thank you
really
all
nice
who were
guys
there
too.
in Normandy. If you're watching, we love you, and it was really, really fun that week.
Yeah, that was a really fun week. I hope next time we go live on location, which probably won't be till after D-Day, I hope we get more brigadiers to come because it was really nice hanging out too.
It was.
And Brent brought us that barbecue sauce from his family's restaurant. Oh boy, that's good.
Love and appreciate you guys. Just had a question about your educational background and how you ended up in Germany. Well, I'm in Germany, Andy's in Sweden, but there's a story there. Let's try to keep this short, Andy.
Okay, my educational background. I went to St. John's School in Houston, Texas. That's where I graduated high school. Then I went to Wesleyan University and I got my degree in history and graduated with honors from there. And then I took off to act and be a rock star. And I did those things for the next 25 years. There was a bunch of other stuff thrown into. That's the quick version. I ended up in Sweden by accident. I didn't think I was moving to Europe when I ended up in Prague in 1993, and several countries later and several years later, I was in Sweden for 2 weeks, and I got cast doing voices for a cartoon. I'll keep it brief, a regular cartoon, and I'd always done voiceovers and stuff, and so I stayed and I stayed and I stayed and I stayed, and here I am. So.
My educational background is I studied business administration, actually, specifically for media and marketing. I'm an amateur historian since I was way little. Got into reenactment for a while, did that, but most of all, I worked in the media industry. I produced films, feature films, documentaries, television, everything you can imagine. And then I became a media executive for a fairly large media company here in Germany, and decided that is not what I want to do. When Indy and Astrid and I discovered that we could do what we're doing now, I jumped at it as the most fantastic thing that's ever happened to me professionally in my life, well, and personally. And so this is why I'm here. And why I'm in Germany is very simple. My parents live here since longer than I do. I studied in Sweden, although I grew up in France. And eventually my first wife decided that we needed to move to Germany, and we did. And then I met my second wife, which is Astrid, and here I am.
Not while you were still with the first wife, though. It wasn't like that.
That is correct. We were both already divorced when we met.
Hey, I'm going to field this question. I find this question a very limited question in scope. Here's a very important question. Were you guys like party dudes from the 1980s? Why would you limit that to the 1980s? I was 22 in 1989. My party age was just getting started. My rock star years were in the 2000s when I was in my mid and late 30s. We were party dudes. Full stop. Okay. You rethink your phrasing when you ask questions like that. You're implying that the glory days were long ago, and here we are just settled into dull middle age. Nay, 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 my friend. Nay, nay, nay. It's not true.
And Sparty rhymes with party. And I was actually called Party's Party for a long time, which is terribly embarrassing, but true. Yes, I guess the answer to the question, although Indy sort of said it. I'll say it straight out. Yes, we were, but we were also party dudes of the 90s.
And the 2000s.
And it goes on.
Yeah.
Has
and
it
the
ended?
2010s. And the
We're both
2000s.
going to a party after this, actually.
Yeah, so yes, I'm going to a party. I got to go to a party at a
Oh,
pool
why?
for this.
It's Saturday.
Can you tell us the story of how Indy and Sparty met in a brothel?
Oh, no. That's too long, Indy. We'll be.
Yeah, and we were in the bar, by the way. We could say that. We were in the bar. And that's not just because I'm cleaning up the story. It's actually true.
Yeah. There were a lot of naked women around us, but we did not partake. And that is actually the truth. But it is a long story, so we'll tell some other time.
I gotta answer a question because I don't quite understand the question. I don't know if it's for me or for Sparty. While filming, you often reach under the desk with your right hand. Is that to adjust the auto cue? That's not me, right? I don't do that.
I don't either. None of us do.
Reach under the desk with my right hand.
No, I think that's a camera illusion. First of all, so here's the thing. You asked earlier, and I didn't answer how many people are in the studio. When Indy's in the studio, he already answered when he's sitting in front of the camera. When I'm sitting in front of the camera, mostly it's just me and Astrid because I've fallen to this 1 week schedule, which I want to change, but I am. I'd prefer to have two people there, but I actually do my own teleprompter, but I do it with my foot. So I do not reach with my hand anywhere. I think that's a camera illusion. And there's another thing. I have an essential tremor. Some of you will have seen that in the show. When I lift up my hand, I start shaking, and I'm not going to do it now. But so I really keep my hands on the desk, and I try to. When I don't, I often get comments. Are you all right, Sparty? You should check yourself if you have Parkinson's or something. I don't. I have familiar tremor. I know that Indy.
I'm thinking I've got my forward position. Got my forward position here. My back position. I'm like, well, why not? Why would he not do that? And then, of course,
that's when people think you reach under. I just saw it on the screen. That's when they think you reach.
I would not. Okay, but no, I'm not. I'm just. That's my. You know, my World War II in real time personality is not my actual personality. It is a character. He has specific motions and movements and a way of presenting. I don't think if I talked like that in real life, I would have any friends at all. And I do have friends. We worked on this character.
You're talking, and you think of it, if I was in real life like I am on War Against Humanity.
So I can picture like young Sparty, War Against Humanity Sparty, like meeting a girl at a party in like the 80s. We'll call you on Friday. Never forget.
I actually know how to laugh. Although War Against Humanity Sparty does not know how to laugh.
No, he does not. No, hey Sparty, you talk about this since you've done some editing of her, and you know when we started it all up. How do you find the film clips and footage? How do you decide what to use when you have lots of footage or videos to choose from? That's a very interesting question because people.
It is indeed. First of all, as you will have seen in the video, and again, this is why you guys need to keep those funds coming in and make sure that we can do what we do, because a lot of what we use we have to pay for. Now we have a contract with Reuters and Screen Ocean, as you will have seen in the video, which enables us to buy that at a fairly low rate. And I'll start right there. What they have is an enormous resource of clips from 100 years of filmmaking, where they bought up old news archives, and they're also putting up their own Reuters archive as they roll forward with a little bit of a delay. And we can access all of that. And that's very well indexed, and you can search. Sometimes it's not all right. Sometimes it's a bit wrong, but we fact check it and we find it. So the editor will literally go in there and start at that point and look through their archive to see if there is anything from this period that covers this event or that is similar enough that we can use it for that, and then find those there and to get those clips in. But we also use Wikimedia. We also use the web to find things that are in the public domain, and you basically search it. Now, over the years, we've built up our own archives. So we have this huge archive that's organized topically. So we have like one folder called Africa 1941. Right, and we have another folder called Barbarossa, and in that folder, everything that we've found about Barbarossa is in there, and you can go in and check that. Now, we've never gotten to the point of where we cross-index it, but that is basically the process. So we use the web, and we use our own archive, and we use the Reuters and Screen Ocean website, which is an app actually where you can search it all down. But the thing is that also needs to be fact checked. So this is one of the things that our interns get to have an insight into and get to be part of, but also James and Frankie do it themselves. They then go through the pictures to see, does this make sense, or did we take something completely wrong? We don't always get it 100% right because it's a bit fluid. You don't always know. The data around a record can be dubious, but we try our best to do it. We learned very quickly that it's really important. It was actually in 1915 in World War II when the first Anzac troops came into
in the Great War.
World War I, I meant, sorry, World War I, when the first Anzac troops arrived in France, and our editor at the time took some footage that he had found from the archive we were using back then, which was a different one. And he put those in and said Anzac troops, and the comments went wild because it turned out that it was very clear to anybody who knows anything about Anzac troops that this footage was not from 1915 because they were wearing helmets from 1916, and we got bombed for that. And we learned our lesson the hard way: don't mess with the historiography and the photography. So we try our best, and when we don't get it right, it is either because the archive metadata is wrong, or because we had to because we didn't have anything else, and then we usually put it into the picture so you can see in the picture that it was taken at some different time but illustrates the same thing. And by the way, I did exactly that mistake in our first episode. I tried to illustrate the first episode of World War II. It's not there anymore because it's in the redone version. We fixed it, but because I edited that, and I wanted a picture to illustrate the SS, and for some reason, in the speed of things and reading metadata wrong, I managed to take the Estonian Legion, no, it's the Lithuanian Legion, and throw them in to illustrate the SS. And boy, did I get beat up on that one as well, for good reason. I mean, it's wrong. It should be that way, but
some angry Lithuanians there.
Yes, some very angry.
No, but that's because that's it's a major part of the show. Is all the footage. I mean, it's 40% of what you see. You see 60% meat and 40% maps and footage, roughly. And people I know people assume, you just find something on YouTube and copy it. No, you get your channel shut down if you do that. It does cost a lot of money. I'm going to answer this one. I'm interested in how this channel started. What were the early struggles you faced? Well, when we started World War II and Time Ghost, the two channels together, we were quite fortunate because I had already done the Great War and had like 900,000 subscribers for that. We could not advertise that we were starting new channels on that, though. So it took some people a couple of years to find World War II, since the Great War was done through Mediacraft, which is another network, and they don't want to advertise that I'm doing other projects on other channels, which I guess makes sense. I mean, it's not a zero-sum game. It's not like if you're watching World War II, you're not watching the Great War, which I think some creators think that you watch one thing instead of another. You can't just watch both of them, but what do I know? But so when we started, the first thing we did with Time Ghost was the Cuban Missile Crisis. And then we redid that, much like we did with the first 10 or 12 episodes of World War II, when we had more money for better technique and better editing. No offense, Sparty, but professional, full-time editors, shall we say. Sparty is an editor. But,
no, well-made point. Well-made point.
So we were very fortunate that I already had a huge fan base. I already had hundreds of thousands of fans. I know for a fact that many of them still have not found World War II because they watched the Great War. And how would you know from the Great War that I'm doing World War II? You wouldn't. So still every couple of weeks in the comments, we were like, I had no idea Andy Nidell was doing this. But we still had hundreds of, the first episode of World War II, when it came out, within 24 hours, it had 150,000 views. For a brand new channel's first episode, that's really good, right? Challenges we faced was that we were no longer with an multi-channel network, an MCN. We no longer had of funding and a guarantee office stuff. We were on our own. It was just me, Sparty, and Astrid. Astrid built the sets and designed the costume and did all that stuff, and I did the scripts, and there were no specials then. And Sparty shot it and did the editing. That was it. That was it for the first 3 months.
That's tough. It's tough. We worked a lot. I mean, a lot of sleepless nights.
Okay, sure. It's a challenge. It was a challenge trying to figure out how to reach Great War fans, but and we know people who were fans of the Great War are also fans of other channels that don't mind saying that I'm doing World War II, so that was I think the biggest channel was just trying to do the week by week thing with just 3 people, because you don't realize putting out a video every week, that's no problem for whatever your channel is. Putting out a historically accurate document with inserts of footage from the time and with maps and stuff that purports to follow a major event week by week in real time, that's not easy for 3 people to do. That was so yeah, that was the hardest thing. That was far harder than like Cuba, because that was a limited series. Cuba only had the 13 days and the 3 extras. So
here's the question. I think the question goes to me. I will guess that it does from the context. Your facial hair is amazing. Do you go to a personal barber or taught yourself? Well, first of all, thank you. No, I do it all myself. I actually cut my hair myself as well. I very particular about those things. I have gone to a barber a few times in my life, many times in my life actually, but I never come back with what I like. So I've learned how to do it all myself. But yeah, that's a long story. But thank you, very kind of you.
I have my barber, the guy I've been going to the last 6 or 7 years. His name is actually Hannibal, and he's from Lebanon. And when I come in, he's like, "Hello, Indiana." Like, "Hello, Hannibal." I'm like, anybody listening to us would think we're just making this shit up.
You should come to a show with us, Hannibal, Indiana, and Spartacus. I mean, how great would that be?
How often does Indy commute from Sweden to Germany to film episodes? Every 4 to 6 weeks, depending. I try to have 6 or 7 weeks worth of episodes ready to shoot. Sometimes that's not possible. Like, I was just down there in late January, and I've got to go next Saturday down. So there'll only be 4 or maybe 5, depending when I get done, of the regular episodes, because I've also been writing D-Day. So, that takes a little more time. Would either of you be interested in coming to the US and doing talks or events? You're very popular here, but sadly, many of us do not have the time or money to travel to Europe. Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, I grew up in Texas. I still go back to the States at least once a year. We never got to go with the Great War to do stuff in the States, which would have been great, but yeah.
I'd love to do it as well. I mean, I have family in the States in New York.
Yeah,
I lived in Oregon for a while. I mean, the only thing that's been stopping us there are 2 things that have been stopping us actually. One was COVID, and the other one we did want to go to Hawaii for Pearl Harbor, and we weren't able to because of COVID. And the other thing is funds. And we've been talking about this. We talked about it earlier today, even that once we're done with D-Day and we're going forward now, we want to go to places that are relevant to the war here in Europe. But I mean, we've talked about it so many times, and one day I really hope that we can. Both Indy and I have talked about taking a tour through the U.S. and visiting you guys and seeing you all, going to a couple of locations and maybe holding talks and presentations. But it really does come down to the funds and the time.
But also the organization too. You got to be fair with that. I mean, you are right. You are absolutely right. But saying, are you guys going to come to the States? Well, what does that mean? Are we going to come to the Northeast and do some talks in Boston and New Haven and New York? Okay. Or are we going to come and go to Miami and Chicago and Los Angeles? Because that would be, those are hugely different things. It would have to be a specific target part of the US that we would be coming to.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that the simplest answer is we'd love to if we could afford it and if we had the time, and eventually we will get the time, and then I hope that we can afford it.
Two historians on screen and not a single thread of tweet visible. Have you guys no shame? We don't have any shame, but that's not the point. Point is, just yesterday, actually, I got measured. But no, 2 days ago, I got measured by a tailor for a new gray tweed suit, actually. So, and it has nothing to do with your contributions. It's when I turned 50. I'm 55 now. When I turned 50, my friends all got together and they raised a bunch of money to get me a gray tweed suit because I wanted a gray tweed suit. And the tailor who was going to do that, lived in England, never made the suit and, kept the money. They finally got the money back. So they got another tailor. So I get my 50th birthday present sometime this spring as a 55-year-old. But I understand how you feel. And no patched elbows. You need patched elbows. Do you have patched elbows?
Yes, I have two tweed jackets with patched elbows because I'm a historian.
Yeah. Yeah.
so
I'm wearing cashmere. That's close to tweed.
Yeah, I'm wearing an ascot. That's pretty well. It could be RAF.
So we're pretentious enough. I mean, come on.
Yeah, we don't need
cashmere,
to.
ascot.
Yeah. And
It's
how
not just
many
a black sweater? It's cashmere.
Think about it. You've seen us both in tweed so many times during the show because Astrid keeps us in tweed all the time.
Yeah,
In
these
any case,
things are important.
yeah.
My ties are either made of silk or they're made of whatever bizarre synthetic plastic they made ties with in the 1930s in the Soviet Union. That's my geometricians
sure.
I wear.
And from that levity, I'll go to something more serious. Hey,
Okay.
Sparty, I wanted to know, does doing War Against Humanity series for so long take any kind of mental toll on you? Yes, it does, without a doubt. I have nightmares. I've had bouts when I've really had to struggle with myself. I try to not burden anybody with it. Not because, talking about mental health is a really important thing. So I do talk about it, but I try to not burden the others with it because I don't want to pull them into it. Because what you're forgetting is that it's not just War Against Humanity that's really, really terrible. All of us are looking into the most terrible event that happened to humanity, at least made by humanity itself. I shouldn't say that because what happens to one individual is just as terrible. Even if it happens a million times, it doesn't get less terrible. But if we look at it from a global perspective, this was the biggest conflagration that mankind has ever seen. And we all look into it. Maybe it comes across as a little bit colder when Indy's talking about the Eastern Front, but he's still reading the books where all of these people are dying, suffering, and going down. So I think all of us struggle with that to a certain point. We have tried in the past, and we still do, to have, at least for the ones working with the specifically atrocious things that happen in my show, to have debriefing sessions where we talk about what we feel and how we feel about it. I have the luck that I have a loving wife, a great family, and a private life that is so far away from any of that suffering that it's possible to retreat into working on my boat or going skiing or working in the garden and getting rid of all of those thoughts because I'm so focused on what's going on with my hands or my feet. But I think you'd have to be a psychopath to not suffer from reading it. I do have the advantage that I've been studying this for over 40 years, so 45 years going on now. But yes, I do. And but it's worth every second because what we do is important and we feel it not just because of the great support we get from you guys who are members of the Time Ghost Army and who make this show happen, but also because of the interaction, everybody in the comments and reminding us of why we do this every week. I can only thank you so much, and I hope that you will be with us for a long time while we continue doing this. And by tomorrow, I hope we'll also reach our 100% fundraising goal. So, we're at 81% now, 19% to go. Keep those contributions coming.
My mother actually even asks me, she doesn't understand how I can do it like week after week after week. I think if I wrote and filmed each week, it would be a lot harder, but I can compartmentalize the writing part. But you have more than me, but there have been times like when we did the Holodomor episode of Between Two Wars on Time Ghost. that's when you can see at the end that I start crying, because
Yeah.
that just
It's a healthy, normal human reaction. If we would do this and we'd walk away, I mean, I don't think we'd be able to do it even, because you have to have a sense of, you have to have a certain amount of compassion in order to make these stories come alive. And even if, and I mean, I know it because we talk about it and I've seen it so many times on camera, even if Indy doesn't say it, right? He knows that when the Stalingrad grind is going down, people are dying and suffering. And we talk about it between the scenes, and if you look at it carefully, you can see it in his eyes as well. And if that wasn't there, then you wouldn't be able to relate too much as you can to the stories that we tell. So it's important, but it is harsh and it's hard.
Let's see. Wait, Indy, how's Sabaton been treating you? Sabaton's been treating me well. For those of you who don't know, who might not know, the power metal, the Swedish power metal band Sabaton, all of their songs are about military history and different aspects and things of it. Have a channel called Sabaton History, and I present the history part of that, and then I talk to the guys from the band in different interviews, and we've done like 120 episodes. But they're doing well. I saw them a week and a half ago in Mora, up, and they're doing a Swedish tour just before their big European capitals tour. And they're doing, since they did a Swedish tour last year, they're doing all the smaller places. So we went to Mora. I went there so we could film more Sabaton history, and we filmed it on. I got there like 3 hours before they opened the hall to the public. So their crew had moved up the desk and the set from Falun, where they keep it from their compound, driven it up to Mora. So yeah, but things are going well with Sabaton. I mean, by this time, we're not just colleagues. I mean, I'm good friends with all 5 of the guys in the band. I mean, we text each other a lot. And when I was there, we hang out for the evening until they had to go, to the next show and stuff. Yeah, no, we're pals. So yeah,
They're lovely souls. They're lovely souls. They're very lovely.
Yeah, they're all 5 of them are really, really nice guys.
They are.
That's great.
No
they're
question. I mean, I don't know them as well as you do, Indy, but every time I meet them, I'm struck with what kind and cool people they are.
They're very, very good at what they do too.
They are. They're very professional.
Yeah.
And here's a question that I think sort of opens up a bigger topic. The question is, why did you omit the Tuskegee Airmen contributions in the airborne Operation Kesselring? I'm going to answer that first, and then Andy can answer it afterwards. And I think we both have a take on this. See, this is one of the disadvantages with the chronological format, but it's also one of the advantages with the chronological format. We talked about what they did, even if we didn't speak or Indy didn't speak specifically about the Tuskegee Airmen in that in those episodes. We already did a special about that. So the disadvantage is, in a chronological format, we can't focus on one specific unit or something like that if they don't have an incredible impact on what's going on. So we focus on the story and what's really going on. The same thing goes for War Against Humanity or for any other chronological format we do. But the advantage with YouTube and what we do is that we can then cover that in a special episode. So we did, and we have talked about them in previous specials, and we will again, most probably. And that's how it works. And that also goes back to what Indy said earlier, when he said we won't run out of material as the war ends. We still have the possibility of going back and doing topical things that cover this unit or that event or this person or whatever it is that we want to dive deeper into. And that is really, again, if we come back to what we've been doing this week and why we're doing this live stream, our fundraising effort for this week, that's exactly why we built a team. While we're not just here, me and Indy and Astrid, still 5 years later, or almost 6 years later, and in one little cabin in our back lot and doing, a video a week. No, we really want to do this war and history in general, not just this war, but anything we cover, the biggest justice that we can. But we can't do it all at once. It is a project in evolution. So if the Tuskegee Airmen haven't been
Wait, do
covered
you
in
know what, Sparty? Do you know what illustrates that way better than the Tuskegee Airmen and Operation Kesselring? The Dieppe raid, right?
yes,
When the
yes.
Dieppe raid happened, got a couple days on the Insta thing. I talked about it for a couple of minutes in the regular episode. People went absolutely ballistic. Don't realize the impact it had on the future and the things like that. I'm like, well, I'm covering this war week by week. It wasn't that big a raid. What I can't explain to people. We have massive coverage of the Dieppe raid as part of the D-Day project, because that's when it becomes important. And also the new research that came out just the last couple of years, in the David O'Keefe book, actually, One Day in August. If you get the book One Day in August, get the newest version, because he keeps finding new declassified sources and keeps editing it. He's been doing it since the 90s. The newest version, it's mind-blowing, the stuff that's actually come out. And that was the whole point. And people, I'm telling you, I can't say, oh, this is going to be important for the, because I don't know the future. I cover it week by week. You know, I can't tell you what's going to happen 2 weeks from now or why this is going to be important. The Dieppe raid illustrates that way better than Tuskegee Airmen does. But it will all come out eventually. That's the thing. People are going to be, or I know I'm going to get so many happy comments from all the people that got really, really angry at us about the Dieppe raid once the D-Day special comes out, because that was the plan.
Yeah, and on that note, okay, so everybody just chop my head off in the comments for saying Tuskegee. I always do that. Indy said it right. So, okay, you don't need to tell us in the comments that it's called Tuskegee. And I know that as well, but I just say it that way and I won't stop. So now you know. Indy said it right. Okay, so we know.
Hey, Sparty, answer there's a last question there, and then we're gonna let everybody go, because you've got to do your thing and I got to go do my thing, because it's nearly 7:20. How has the recent financial slowdown affected the channel?
Well, it's made it difficult for us, without a doubt. We mentioned this in the video already that came out a week ago. Concretely, we've seen a stagnation in membership, and then we saw even a dip in membership. But this last week has actually recovered us from that. More significant towards our operation has been the drop in YouTube income. YouTube, we've lost more than half by now. When we did the video, it still looked like we'd lost about 45%. Now we've lost more than half of the YouTube income, which used to make up about 20% of the channel, and now it makes about 10% of the channel revenue. And that really, really means that we have been missing money for the last few months. And Astrid has been struggling to keep up with it. She's managed, she's juggled, she's opened every box she could in order to make sure that everything runs. We had to cut down our output a little bit. We did a lot of things to save money. And that is really one of the most important things why we did this fundraising was, one, we are doing D-Day and we want to continue keeping our output at the level that we have, which is
we don't
really,
want to
really
stop
important.
doing specials and war against humanity.
We don't want to stop that. So that was really important. But the second one was also to cover up for the losses that we've incurred due to the drop in YouTube income. And I mean, since we're now out of time, I'd like to finish on specifically that note. I think there are no words to express how grateful every single one of us here at Time Ghost are for being allowed to do what we do.
We love our job. We love our work.
We have, it's difficult. I don't think that a lot of people appreciate how difficult it is. We talked about the mental health issues, but it's also practically very complicated. It definitely doesn't give you financial security and doesn't make you rich, but it is a privilege. Somebody said here that we give voice to the voiceless and thanked us for that. And well, thank you for enabling us to give voices to the voiceless, because that is exactly what you guys are doing out there. And that is what your contributions go to when you become members of the Time Ghost Army. It is, it's a job that I think we will always cherish you guys for being allowed to do. That's the best way I can put it. And it's a privilege. You guys are just fantastic. We love you. We love the Time Ghost Army. We love what we do, and we hope that we can continue doing it for, many years to come.
Yeah. Next 20, 30 years, right? Just think, imagine being here in like a live stream in like 2045, talking about whatever we happen to be covering and stuff. And tell me to think like, I remember I was at that live stream back in February 2023. Indy
We'll
said
be
that it
talking a
was
lot
his sister's
slower,
birthday.
Andy.
Yeah,
We'll be
we'll talk a lot
talking slower.
slower. We'll hear a lot slower too. And since I'm gonna be demented, I'm gonna hear slowerlier. That's how I'm gonna talk slowerlier and hear more slowerly. So that's my
I
plan.
hope you're not. But yeah, no, thank you all. And like I said, when we started this live stream, we were at 81% of the goals that we set ourselves for this fundraising. It is only thanks to you that we've reached them. Let's make those 19% full as well, so that we can say tomorrow we've reached 100% and we're ready to go and land on the beaches of Normandy and go on the Eastern Front and carry through Bagration and everything that is coming this summer and beyond.
And Operation
Because-
Ugo, the invasion of India, and Imphal and Kohima and stuff, and all the action in the Pacific. Boy, I have so much to cover from now on.
And so do I. We have
gosh.
the uprising in Slovakia. We have the uprising in Poland, which I've already started covering. And more than anything, a year from now, you will see how humanity actually starts to win. And I think that that's what we're really, really working towards, and what you guys are helping us to do, even in our present time, because we need this now in 2023. We're facing the beasts of warmongering again, and we need to fight it. And we need to do our part in it. The guys on the ground are doing theirs, and it's our part is to try to keep everybody's memory alive so that we know how to do it better next time.
All right. Well, that was pretty epic there, Sparty. Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we will let you go for tonight from tonight's World War II Time Ghost live stream fundraising extravaganza live stream video. Once again, I'm Indy Nidell.
I'm Spartacus Olson.
And Ian, you want to say your name too?
Yeah, and I'm Ian Sabaton. Thank you everybody for tuning in.
That's Ian Sabaton, the man behind the mask. Yep, like Alice Cooper, he's out of control. So, okay, we'll see you guys next time. All right.